Hello everyone, welcome to DigiBytes. And today we have Raghav with us. I think he need no introduction. You all know very well that he is very up to date with the technologies in our community. So, uh, not talking much, I will hand over things to Raghav. Raghav, maybe you can tell us something about what you are doing currently and how is everything going on.
Thanks a lot, Vaibhav, again for this discussion. Everything is going fine. I recently switched jobs. I moved into a senior data manager role into one of the top organizations, and I'm doing amazing stuff. And I'm doing most of the stuff on cloud right now. And from whatever I learn from there, and whatever I've learned before, I'm applying all that knowledge, and things are going well as of now, and hopefully I can present something in this video for all the viewers.
That's really nice. So, Raghav, without any wasting any time, I would like to move forward with our today's agenda, which is Azure. So we all have heard about Azure a lot, and uh, today's world is about data itself. So can you brief us that what are Azure Data Fundamentals and why they are necessary, or why the organizations are moving towards using those fundamentals?
I think it's a very good question. So let's set some base. If this is anybody, if this video is being watched by somebody who is a student or somebody, this particular aspect would really interest them. So overall, in 2021, they say there are 3 quintillion bytes of data is being generated every day. 3 quintillion bytes, how you can measure is like after 3, you can imagine 17 zeros. So
Right.
that much amount of data is being generated every day. And if we compare with a metaphor like brain, our brain has about 100 billion euros. So it's like after the 111 zeros. So the amount of data being generated versus how much your brain can process, I mean, it's a good comparison, is too much. So there should be some, and what kind of data is being generated? Structured, the standard relational database management systems, semi-structured like XML files, JSON files, and other kind of different XML, JSON, semi-structured files, and unstructured files, audio, video, PDF files. How do we get all this data at one place? You cannot have all these different racks of hard drives, solid state drives in a big machine. So there is some thought process around this, and this has been going for very long. Distributed computing. So cloud computing is the place, and Azure is one of the provider like Amazon and Google who is very good at it. And there are many problems in it. I mean, how do we solve it? Is what Azure is solving. So that's the fundamental. Why do we really need a cloud-based system like Azure? I would say that is the first fundamental.
So I would like to hold you here. We talked about these different sets of data types and how things are managed by different vendors like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. So actually, how we store this data. So can you give us some brief or some insights on that?
Very good question, actually. So every cloud provider is different. So, but I'll keep this video very focused to Azure, right? So ideally, you can store data in what, like a file storage system and a Synapse, I mean, re- relational database management system. So file storage system, it can be like a blob, text file, CSV. All these files that can be directly uploaded to a cloud-based account, and it can stay there. But how do you really access it? So if we can convert all these systems into a file storage mechanism, there is something called the Azure Data Lake. So you store all the data in the Azure Data Lake, and Data Lake is huge and it's necessary because let's say company has HR, finance, commercial, supply chain, and so many other departments. And somebody can ask that, how is my truck on um, highway 65? I'm just making up a number, highway 65, and what was the cost of fuel, and what was the cost the customer paid, which is in the finances, right? So you want to merge these two information and get a report out of it, right? So
Right.
earlier, how it used to be, it is finance system is here, supply chain system is here. But now let's say if we put all the data in one place, like a data lake, right? So both of these questions can be easily answered, which is data warehouse also does. But let's say the raw data from the source systems can also be kept at one place. That is data lake. So Azure has a very good system called Azure Data Lake. Apache Hive can be used as Azure Data Lake's interface, and based on that, we can go forward. So that is one of the storage. And on the data warehouse side, Azure Synapse. Azure Synapse is like Teradata, Oracle, or something, but Synapse is very specifically for data warehouse where we store this data. So that's the primarily two storage systems, what I would suggest.
So, are there any sets of generalized tool, as you mentioned, multiple tools here, or multiple technologies? So, are there any kind of generalized technologies that works with all the cloud systems, or is it only specific to Azure?
No, actually, everything works on the cloud, to be very honest, right? Let's say if you want a SQL server, that can also be done. I mean, Synapse is nothing but an Azure SQL database, right? So in multiple technologies can be used, but just putting this framework as like, let's say, because the topic of the discussion was Azure. So Azure Data Lake, where you store all the data, you build your warehouse in Azure Synapse. Yeah. But cloud as an Azure portal supports way too many technologies. If you want a MySQL database on Azure, it is possible. If you want a SQL Server database, it is possible. If you want a PostgreSQL, it is possible. But just sticking on to the Microsoft stack, this is what I would recommend.
And what advantages does Azure hold over other cloud systems that is beneficial for organizations?
So it's a amazing question. So many companies are already a Microsoft shop. So you have Teams, you have Outlook, you have SharePoint, you have MS Access, you have Excel, PowerPoint. So you have a very sound knowledge of how Microsoft as an ecosystem works. A. That's the only bigger point what I see. I mean, every cloud provider provides everything, but as an organization, if you want to adapt something where you have already some kind of knowledge before, Microsoft brings that to your table. So, and m- migration might be easier because you're already very useful and stuff. Sometimes SQL Server, if somebody is already using an SQL Server, just going on to cloud is useful, right? Rather going to
Right.
completely a new technology. So, so how much investment you have on Microsoft? I feel this is my way of looking at it, and I might be completely wrong. But how much investment you have as a company on Microsoft depends on your this one. Apart from that, Azure has this great machine learning models which is developing. AWS definitely has SageMaker, but
Right.
Azure has this machine learning models which is upcoming, and they are pretty good. So you have your data in your data lake, and you have your ready-made Azure machine learning models. So if you can implement them right off, it is useful. And second thing is, which goes to the next point, like we need an ETL tool, right? Every company wants to storing the data is one aspect, but processing that data, how do you
Right.
process the data from one place to another? So if companies have already used SSIS, the tool is Azure Data Factory. So moving data from data lake to Synapse, if companies are already using on SSIS, so moving on to Azure Data Factory is easier. So it's how the adoption is happening, sorry.
So, if we talk about any strong use case that is relevant for most of the organizations, or I would say at least 60-70% of organizations in the current scenario. So, what example you would like to quote for our audience?
Let me put couple of examples, and let's see if you that is what you're trying to look. I'm a startup company, right?
Yeah.
Um, I have a simple website, right, where um, I want to track all my Google Analytics, right, and all my Google Analytics need to go into a database. Let's say this is the use case, and I connect my Google Analytics through an API, And if I have to jump into a database, your so you can have your web application running on Azure. You can have your database, because web application, the database behind, probably it's a PHP MySQL database application, as simple as that, or it's a WordPress application, whatever. Simple WordPress based application, it's running there. Google Analytics API is connected. You have your data going into database, and from there you're seeing how the business is performing in Power BI in all Azure. That's a simple use case. Complex use case, like the way
Right.
we spoke, supply chain, HR, all of them going into one storage, which is like data lake. And from there, having a data warehouse, which where you can snapshot the data, and Power BI as a visualization tool can help you. And because we have so much of data, we can use services like machine learning models and build it. So these can be different, multiple use cases, to be very
That's really nice examples which you quoted. So, if I try to summarize whatever we discussed till now, so data is the energy on which the current organizations feeding on, and this energy needs to be synchronized and put into the right form. So, for that, we need this Azure Data Fundamentals and all the technology tool sets that are available, and to convert the data from the raw form to the organized form, and then converting into the reporting side and utilized by the business to make the right decisions or to prepare the right products for the people. So
young.
this is what how the Azure fundamentals work on.
Absolutely. So the Azure Data Fundamentals is exactly what you said. Collection of data through data lake, organize your data through Synapse, reporting through Power BI. That can be one um,
Yeah.
aspect of it. But before collection, also there can be web applications where you can build on. I mean, .NET applications, whatever
Yes.
application can be built on
Right.
that. Yeah, yeah.
So
So that's it. Yeah,
So I think Raghav, that information which you shared with us is really fruitful for us. And uh, audience, if you have any kind of questions related to Azure Data Fundamentals, you can please mention on the comment section or can write us over the mentioned mail in the description. And we will try to get all the answers from Raghav, or maybe create more videos if we find any relevant topics which can be thoroughly investigated. So thank you, Raghav, for your time and sharing all this knowledge, and thank you all the audience for watching our video.